Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to ImmaLetYouFinish listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ImmaLetYou, ImmaLetu. That's betterhelp.com/ImmaLetYou, ImmaLetu. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Live from a parking lot in Piscataway, New Jersey. It's I'ma let you finish.
You got to pick the one city, the one town nobody can spell.
No one can spell Piscataway. No one. I don't even think the people who live in Piscataway can spell.
Not even the Piscataway Indians could spell it.
I mean,
I'm assuming that's what it is. It's not like Piscataway.
Right. You know what's really funny? It took so long for me. I think I was an adult when I started to realize that a lot of the names of the Long Island towns were native. Like, it didn't even dawn on me. Like Massapequa, Ronkonkoma, all of these things. I was like, oh, well, wait a minute.
Not Hempstead, okay?
Well, not Hempstead. And I'm not quite sure about...
Or Roosevelt, Roosevelt.
And I'm not quite sure about Mastic Shirley, but that could be one.
Mastic Shirley always sounded to me like some sort of disease.
Yeah, and they'd be like, in Mastic Shirley, I was like, what is that? Like, I've never even been there. I don't think I've driven through Mastic Shirley. I
believe I've been there on a train on my way to someplace where I wouldn't have to be in Mastic Shirley. Anyway, it just sounds like too many names for a very small place.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm in the middle of my 3-week news break. Of course, I had to come off my news break for the horrible events of the past few days, I would say. And yeah.
Oh, I'm fine. You know, life goes on. I have some new teeth. I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm.
I have the poor man's implants, which are called the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
In New York City, they don't pay for implants. They'll give you a bridge, though. So that's exciting. And nothing else much is going on in the world. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but rumor has it there's a major musical award show this weekend coming up.
I think...
I mean, is it the South Hall Orchestra Achievement Awards? What's happening?
Mean, that's almost what it feels like. Like, somebody said to me the other day, like, oh, the Grammys, da-da-da-da-da-da. I was like, when are the Grammys? And
we've had this.
Oh, shit. They're Sunday.
We had no idea. Neither one of us. By the way, those of you who paid because you thought you were getting two music industry insiders, we will give you our money back because we had no idea that the biggest award show in the music industry was this Sunday coming up.
But it just seems really quiet. And let me just say this. As a person who's attended several Grammys, they're better on television.
Oh, I'm sure.
They
I'm
are
sure.
long and they are boring in person, and no one stayed. By the end, everybody's already at a party or a dinner or something.
Well, they're
It's
not
like,
even that good on
mm,
television. That's what's
mm,
bad. I mean, I don't know. So I don't is in my defense, I think one of the main reasons I didn't realize it was this weekend is because I don't watch CBS. I'm not trying to be because that's where you're seeing all the advertisements is on CBS.
absolutely.
So I don't watch CBS. No one. But and we haven't started seeing the posting from our publicists and friends about the this that maybe they haven't started doing that
No,
yet.
the weird thing is it just seems really quiet. I'm still, I'm not working at a label or management company anymore, but I have a gazillion friends who
Yeah.
are, and I'm not seeing them flooding shit out. I'm not hearing everybody being like, I'm on my way to LA for the thing. Now, a lot of people I know have moved to LA, so I guess when you're in LA, it's just like, yeah, that's the thing that's happening on Sunday. And I'm sure if we were in LA, we'd be getting invites to, there's always performances. So I'm sure people are doing concerts all week long.
Is there a host this year?
Yes, it is Trevor Noah
Oh,
again.
Oh, God, he's boring. I'm sorry.
I really liked LL as the host because he was a
I do
music
too.
person, but
I don't.
But when they pushed Ken Hertz out, they changed the host and the whole situation. And listen, the ratings did go up, right? So
Yeah.
then CBS, I'm sure, is looking at it. It's like how I feel about the subject we're going to talk about today, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. How I feel about that when now you can see that the people who are putting certain things together have a television show to consider, whereas before, when it happened in the Waldorf and there were no cameras there yet, it was just kind of like a free-for-all. And then when cameras used to come, they would just tape the whole 5 hours. I remember HBO used to air it live. This is back when HBO was really edgy. There was HBO and HBO2, and they would air that ceremony live, and it could go on for hours. And now it's a television show, right? So it's like everything else. You got to produce a television show. Billboard's Women in Music. I went to the first ones of those. That was in a conference room in the Pierre Hotel, one of their ballrooms. And it used to be great, a really sort of insider thing. This year, Billboard's Women in Music, it's called Billboard Women in Music Awards, and they're selling tickets to the general public. So it has, which to me is like, some things are okay to still kind of be like really for your peers, and it's okay for not everything to have.
Well, the Grammy, I mean, with the Grammys, and we'll kind of put money on we think are going to win or lose. Look, the Grammys at this point is a concert with a few awards given out in between.
Absolutely.
I mean, and they're only,
they give out, I feel like, over 3 hours,
8 awards, like 8 awards,
between 8 and 10 awards out of the 78.
Right, and they do everything because of online streaming. They can do everything ahead of time.
Well, I always watch the pre-show,
because that's when they're doing. That's the majority of it is being handed out.
I watch the pre-show, and that's where I see the majority of the country awards given out. All of the dance awards are given out.
All the hip hop, all the major minor categories.
All the jazz awards, all of the folk awards, and a lot of the R&B and rap awards are given out there.
Right. They're giving out the ones because they're giving out to the awards to the people who they are assuming that people don't want to watch on television.
Right.
Any other year but this year, the Latin Music Award would have been given out ahead of time too. But now, because Bad Bunny, they're going to have a lot of Bunny. His major awards are going to be given out.
Well, the thing is, he's only nominated in 3 categories, and one is Album of the Year. So that's going to automatically
he's performing,
be on television. Right? Yes, I believe he is performing. So I think that hopefully he might be at the pre-show because sometimes people really come because they want to win their first Grammy. They want to come on stage. I remember when Chance the Rapper won his first Grammy that year. He was nominated, and he came running out at that pre-show. He wanted to go walk across the stage and have that moment of, wow, receiving my first Grammy. Listen, I remember at a time when we would watch award shows like the Grammys, and you actually got to see people come across the stage when it was, and then there'd be a performance. Now it's like performance, award, performance,
commercial, award.
Right. You know what I mean? And I get you're celebrating music, but also let's see people more. I would like to see more of the R&B categories actually happen on the stage. More of those rock categories happening on the stage. It's like seeing people get it in the pre-show when some of them aren't even there because, you know, they're the way you schedule walking on the red carpet and all that. But let me just say this. Talking about all of this makes me so glad I don't have to do that shit anymore. Like, honestly, those days I used, like anybody who works in music will tell you, we're just looking for, especially if you have artists who are going to the show or performing, you're just looking forward to the moment that you know you either stick them in a car or they've come off stage and there's no more awards for them that night and you could just leave and go do your thing.
Right. Yeah, I just voted, and then I stopped voting because I was like, I'm paying these people for the privilege of voting. And I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but I'm like,
Right.
It makes for good cocktail conversation. That's about it. Let's let's talk a little bit about Tom Verlaine passing, then get into the meat. All right, so Tom Verlaine passed on this past Saturday. He was 73 years old.
Of the group Television.
And then
how do you explain who Television is? Because I don't really know.
Well, I'm going to give you Television for Dummies. So it's funny because I'm actually teaching a class right now where we're looking at the early days of punk and hip hop in New York, and the kind of Television is lumped in and considered one of the first New York City punk bands. But when you listen to them, they are no more punk than I Am the Queen of France. Well, actually, Courtney's the Queen of France. All right, so I take that back. One of us is the Queen of France. He's in absentia right now. He's going to be going back and claiming. No,
Bonjour, Mylène.
But they were not a punk band, but they were the first band to play at CBGB's, and they played at CBGB's. CBGB's wasn't a punk club; it was just a place to play. So Television, the original incarnation of Television, was like 73. Was Tom Verlaine, who that is a stage name, obviously. Mm-hmm. Richard Hell, also a stage name, and then I'm going to say Billy Ficca, and I'm forgetting the drummer's name, and I apologize profusely. And then they recorded a single, I believe, and then Richard Hell left. He eventually would form the Voidoids and put out Blank Generation, which became like a big anthem song. Then Richard Lloyd joined Television. And they were I never saw them. They were one of those bands that people were just mesmerized by because there was a level of musicianship in the band. Mm-hmm. You don't associate punk rock with musicianship, which is, I think, wrong. You know, that's like saying R&B is only one thing. It's not. There are R&B singers, you know, of all different stripes, hip hop all different stripes. Well, anyway, so Television is one of the early bands. Was them, Blondie, the Talking Heads, the Ramones. None of those bands have anything in common with each other.
That's
other
true,
than the
actually.
fact, nothing. Like other than
the fact that they get lumped in the same genre, but they really are all very different.
Very different. There's attitude, I suppose, whatever. So Television's first album, Marquee Moon, came out in 1977, and without hyperbole, it is considered certainly one of the best albums of that era, but it always shows up on best album lists. I mean, this past year, Rolling Stone, that thing we argued about, the greatest songs, Marquee Moon, the song is the 173rd greatest song in rock and roll. And it's what's really interesting about it, Courtney, like when you think about punk rock, right, or rock and roll, you think short, kind of concise songs. Marquee Moon, the single, is almost 11 minutes long, which is, they had more in common with some way with like jazz and the Grateful Dead.
So is it like fusion?
Jamming. No. It's rock music. Okay. Very poetic lyrics, very kind of angular. And Verlaine and Richard Lloyd were the guitar, but the guitar, and this sounds so like, yeah, sure. But when you listen to the guitar solo on Marquee Moon, it's just sort of like, how is he making this noise?
Right.
I mean, I have friends who are like guitar people, right? And they're just like, he was the finest American guitar player whose last name wasn't Hendrix. I mean, I have been reading stuff like, but he wasn't like, he wasn't a household name, you know?
Right. Was it because they only had 2 albums, you think?
No, because there are lots of groups that have 2 albums. They just didn't make super commercial music. You know what I mean? I mean, when you think about it, they didn't make super commercial music, but it was really, I never saw them. Like I said, I saw Tom Verlaine play with Patti Smith. He was a collaborator with Patti Smith, and she wrote a bless her heart, but she
Mhm.
wrote
Mhm.
an ode to him in NewYorker.com, which,
Mhm.
as Jody Rosen, our friend, said, if this wasn't Patti Smith, would this even have gotten through the editors? It's so Patti Smith. You know what I mean? Like, it's so like, I'm sorry, there are so many metaphors in this sentence, I can't figure out what you're trying to say. But that's Patti Smith. And kids, only Patti Smith can get away with that. Okay. Nobody else can write like that. Yeah, so they did that album, Marquee Moon, which I listened to this weekend after hearing that he had passed. And it just I mean, it sounds like it could have been recorded yesterday. There's nothing, it's beautiful. And then they did another album, Adventure, in 78. And then he left the group. He basically broke up the group, and I think he put it together in different configurations. They toured a couple years ago, but it wasn't the original group. And then he's done a bunch of solo records. I'm not going to tell you, like I said, I never saw him except with Patti Smith. I saw Richard Lloyd solo with his band in the I don't know. Listen, it's just really good songs, very mystical kind of image. I mean, when you name yourself after Verlaine, Paul Verlaine, the poet, you know, you're not going to have like, hey, baby, yo, baby, baby, baby lyrics. You know what I mean? Like, you're naming yourself after Verlaine.
Right.
Yeah, it was just sort of arty. You know, we hate categories, right? We totally hate. Yeah. But I guess it's arty, but it's just so funny that it's lumped in with punk, but it was just because it was there. They were at that moment, you know, and they were skinny, and I don't know. I mean, it's really beautiful music. So it's very, very sad. And maybe this sounds really super New York-y of me, but when someone's death makes the front page of the New York Times, that to me is like, you know what I mean?
They're usually, that's an important spot, the front page of the New York Times.
That's major, right?
If you mean something, if you make that page, it's an important moment, you know, and it's being marked.
But it's like when we were talking about the Pointer Sisters, you almost don't realize, and they had huge hits, the Pointer Sisters, but you almost don't realize how big somebody is. And then you start doing the math and going, holy crap. So yeah, television and Tom Verlaine didn't have the commercial success, but you hear them in so many bands, some of which I don't care about and some of which I care about very much. You know what I mean? It's just listen to it. I mean, it's just, I mean, David Bowie said they were the most original band he had ever seen in New York. So that's not bad, you know. But
that's a good cosign.
That's a good cosign, right? You hear them in a lot of bands. I mean, there is you hear them in U2. It's like when Keith Levine passed. Remember we talked about, all right, the average person can't pick out Keith Levine from a lineup. But yeah, so it's sad. He was also young. So, you know, the older we get, when someone dies in their 70s, and
we're like, they're so young. They're so young. I know. It's like,
I know.
It's like the shit that we tell ourselves to make it all easier, honey.
It's like I can see that age. I can count to that age.
Let me just tell you something. 55 and gay in New York, I might as well be a brontosaurus. It is the same as 73.
Okay. All right. I will top that. 63 and straight woman in New York. I don't even like, I walk by people and they go, did a ghost just walk by? I feel air.
It's very
I feel a presence, and yet I see no one.
Like the last time I went to the club.
What's the gay man equivalent of when people start calling you ma'am? Or the man equivalent? Because you know how kids at some point, suddenly you become a ma'am? Is there a man equivalent?
Sir. Or in the gays, like if they start calling you a daddy and you're suddenly just like...
Oh. But isn't that like a sexy thing, a daddy?
Well, it all depends on if you tell somebody and you have that kind of relationship. When people automatically call you that, they're walking up to you saying, hey, daddy, I know you got deep pockets and a love for a twink. And it's like, beat it, bitch. I'm not into it. Get out of here.
Because, you know, for women, when you segue into ma'am, it's like a knife in your heart.
Miss Thing, for a gay man, it's like, literally, the last time I went to the club, they thought I was a city inspector coming and trying to show me the certificates.
Right, hold on. Okay, hold on. I have to learn how to laugh with these new teeth.
They were like, all of the certificates are in the office in the back. Shall we take? I was like, no. I'm just here to have a cocktail. I'm like, with whom?
With whom?
Oh, you mean because Joe's not here? Who's Joe, the daytime manager? I was like, no. I'm actually
I'm actually a customer. I'm not here to shut you down. But while I'm here, what the fuck?
Mean,
that's hilarious. Well, anyway, Tom Verlaine. Bless. I mean, great. Just really great. Peace. And he's not someone I listen to all the time, but when I went back and listened to it, and I went, holy crap, this record. And you know what's really interesting? You can probably appreciate this as someone who has helped work on albums. I would always assume that the big long song, the 10-minute song, would be at the end of the record. It's smack dab in the middle of the record.
Right.
Which to me is kind of weird, right?
Yeah, but I love that.
Yeah. Because then it's like, okay, now we just gave you our epic, continue listening.
That's when people, that's back when people were they weren't thinking about, they made albums.
Oh, for sure. What I mean? This is an album.
And how you sequence the album. And, it didn't matter if somebody fell in love. This is back when you didn't have to, there were some albums definitely let it off where track one is the hit that they've been working at radio. And there are others who made different kind of albums where the song you like could be actually the last song on side two. You know what I mean? That was just album work, which we've seen a lot more people go back to really.
They're going back to it because they want to. Because if you're, I hate using the word artist, capital A artist, but you do want, unless you're completely in it for like the quick check, you want people to listen to the totality of your music. You don't want them to dip in, hear the single, and then leave. Unless you're just somebody who's here, like I need money for law school type of thing.
And those are the people I call, they're singers, rappers, and there are artists. The people who I call artists, you can tell really they put something into these bodies of work. And it's like when we talk about Pusha T, he is an artist. He talks about, I could have had 1 million albums, but it takes me a long time to do these albums because I'm really thinking about what I want to say and how it's sequenced and how it's put together.
Even though he talks about the exact same thing on every single record, but I love him for that.
But he does it well.
He does it very well.
And he has something to say. And you hear an album that has a progression. It is sequenced properly.
Nas too. I mean, and also, who's that guy that you love? Vince Staples.
Vince Staples.
We talk about hip hop. These are guys who have a clear path throughout the record.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, we'll just talk about it.
We could get back into it. These are also guys, a lot of them, who do one producer albums, right?
Yeah.
And a one producer.
One or two producers.
We go into this about the one producer album. There's something to be said about the relationship you build when you work with one person and you can tell such a cohesive story,
It's a partnership.
Yeah, it really is.
It sounds like a partnership as opposed to work for hire.
Yeah, absolutely. Or who's the hottest one who's going to come with the hottest beats.
Come in and make a track for me.
And listen, that has its place too, right? I get it if you've had a couple of records that have really underperformed, you tried to make your artist records, and you're at that pivotal time where, you know what, I need a fucking hit. Then you got to come with the hit because that will enable you to keep making and doing your art at a certain level.
Right, for sure. This would be a perfect segue into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
So yesterday on February 1st,
which is Groundhog's Day, or is that February 2nd?
It's
Groundhog's Day is the 2nd.
I have no idea.
Me neither. It's the first day of Black History Month. I just got an alert on my computer.
I got one on my computer too, and I was like, "Thank you so much," because me being Black, I really needed that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
wouldn't.
Apple.
Well, if you were in Florida, you wouldn't know that.
Right, Florida.
In fact, in Florida, they've gotten rid of the entire month of February. It's not happening.
Tomorrow in Florida, it is National French Fry and Spud Day. It's the start of Spud Week, where it's every day you can make a different kind of potato dish for February.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. That sounds promising.
Okay.
Now that I have my new teeth, that sounds very promising.
So let's go through this list.
All right, so the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this year is the first time that the committee met in public. Met in person. We met in public and we met in person. So that's kind of cool. The office kind of reminded me of, I don't know, a couple of people walked in and they went, this feels sort of like the Death Star on a science. It's very white, very corporate. There were microphones and big screens, and it was fine. But it was really nice to see everybody. I say this every year, no matter what you think about the Foo Fighters as musicians, Dave Grohl is the nicest human being in Nicetown. I mean, he just is freaking nice, and we bond over the DC punk rock thing. That's my party trick. I come in looking like I ran away from like Vims, and then that's a New York reference for you.
Thing, where I used to go get my leads.
We all did. Come on.
I would go take to the cleaners and get the permanent crease put in.
Yes, Vim. But and then I start dropping all the punk rock names. So it was lots of fun. It's always lots of fun to see these people, and it's always lots of fun, even if you don't get along with all of them, to see people who are, who care about the same thing.
Right.
And no matter what you want to say about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there's lots to say, plus and negative, there's not anybody in that room who doesn't give a flying blank, who care. Everyone cares about music in that room.
Right. Good.
They may not care about the music you care about.
But they care about music.
About music. And I didn't have to hear anybody talk about Ice Spice. We'll get into that later. Yeah.
Okay,
we need a whole
that
thing.
Needs a
whole thing.
Yeah.
But all I want to say is, Jody Rosen, you're a prophet. He nailed that one. All right. So the I don't know how many people we're going to get to vote for, meaning the greater the voters, and I know they're going to be. So Missy Elliott, first time up for, it's 25 years, but because they missed a year because there was no show one year, so I think it's like if your record came out in 97 or 98.
And listen, she's got 4 Grammy Awards, 8 MTV Music Awards, 2 American Music Awards, 6 BET Awards, and a Billboard Woman in Music Award for Innovator. She's also in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. She
first woman rapper
first
to be
female rapper to get that honor, and third after Jay-Z and Jermaine Dupri. And she's received an honorary doctorate from the Berklee School of Music, and she's the first female rapper to receive the Michael Jackson Video Vanguard Award at MTV. She's
the first woman rapper to make this list. Now, I will tell you, myself and a couple, it's not like I had some genius idea to nominate her, because it's not like I was pulling some obscure act.
Right.
But I am a big fan of chronology. I am someone like so-and-so should get in before so-and-so. But with her, it's like she's just her own lane. She's just her own lane.
Let's start with the fact that she was an album artist, okay?
Totally.
So she
and
wasn't
a
just
producer.
singer. She was writing these songs, producing these songs, and she dropped just album after album full of hit after hit. Some of them are a bunch of them actually are bona fide classics that have gone from generation to generation to generation to generation. Then you think about the stuff that she wrote for other people, like Nicole and Tweet, Janet Jackson, Mariah, Destiny's Child.
Her video stuff. The video stuff changed.
There's the level. I mean, that is a groundbreaking artist.
Can I just tell you something really funny, and then we'll move on? I actually told the story when I was talking about when I worked at this high school a couple of years ago, I was showing them videos. We would listen to the song and then play the video, and they knew who Missy was because of Aaliyah. That's the connection they knew. And so I played Super Duper Fly, and this one girl, bless her heart, was dead serious, really smart girl, dead serious, looks at me and she goes, okay, if she knew it was raining, why did she have the top of the Jeep down? Yeah, there's no coming back from that, right?
It's like, next question.
I was like, now Miss Linden is going to teach you about metaphors.
Right.
All right. Missy Elliott, Kate Bush. This is her 4th time on the ballot. If they don't do it this year, they're never going to do it.
If the Stranger Things bump.
Thank you.
If it doesn't make people say now, oh, wow, people love her. Because now all of the people who were in the closet about loving her really have said, oh my God, I love her. And now young people have discovered her, which to me is amazing because there's literally decades worth of work for them to go back and discover. She's another one with really out there avant-garde videos that will when you think of artists, she is absolutely influential. It is crazy to me that this is her 4th time on this ballot.
Well, she's a capital A artist. Yeah. And look how young she was when she did this stuff.
18.
And had full control of her music. full control. No, it's like, if not now, I mean, what's going to be? I mean, somebody told a really funny story about their kid saying, "Hey, mom, have you ever heard about Kate Bush?" And just looking at them like, "Oh yeah," I mean, if not now, when? I mean,
Right.
it's like, she's always been very popular, but if not now, when? I mean, this is
Real
just
talk.
like, I mean,
This is the moment.
How long was she on the charts for? With Stranger
months,
months,
and
right?
months and months and months and months and months and months and months. This record became bigger than it was its original time
Right.
around.
Running Up the Hill. We're talking about Running Up the Hill. So, all right. So, yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Willie Nelson.
I mean, iconic. Icon.
Beyond, right?
And he's still out there. It's just announced a new tour.
He's doing a 90th birthday party next month, I think.
Stays on the road, has his own brand. Like I said, he was before Snoop was talking about cannabis. Real talk. It was Willie Nelson who was talking about medicinal marijuana for, I mean, at this point, 67, feels like 67
No, forever.
years.
Yeah, forever.
Forever. So he's, just for the weed alone, he deserves to be in.
I don't think they grade on the weed curve.
Sweetie, they should in that room, you know.
Well, no, you would be surprised. It's a very teetotaling room. No, and also Farm Aid. That's a phenomenal. What he putting together Farm Aid. A brilliant songwriter, and the door has been opened a bit. I mean, the Hall of Fame, gets both criticism and praise for expanding this whole idea of like, it's not rock and roll. It's like, shut up with that. Shut up with that noise. White middle-aged incels living in your parents' basement. In Piscataway. Who was more rock and roll than Willie freaking Nelson? He was an outlaw. He was with the Outlaws, right?
I mean, real fucking with a joint when it was illegal for real.
And
kept getting arrested for weed and shit. He was like, fuck that.
Right, fuck that. And with Dolly in it kind of now says, all right, yeah. So Willie Nelson, Rage Against the Machine. I think this is their third time on the ballot. Tom Morello is on the nominating committee. I'm not a huge Rage fan, but everybody I know who saw their last tour was blown away.
But that's the people who love them, and they're always blown away. They've always played well, right? It's like, but I always feel with them, they're so interesting because the people who love them, but I feel like it has not bled out from just that core group of people
I honestly, like, again, I've seen them. I saw them a million years ago. I can see their influence in other groups. The problem is, for me, the people they're influencing are not people I'm interested in, but I feel like they are not just they are way more than just like some rap rock group. They got lumped in with, they're not Korn, for crying out loud.
Right.
They're not Limp Bizkit, for crying out loud. I mean, they are really powerful. So, I mean, I think that they definitely are worthy. Are they my choice? No. But that's also because that genre doesn't interest me, to be really honest with you. But yeah. All right. This is the group I could give a flying fuck about. White Stripes. I don't get it.
I mean, I did like Seven Nation Army. Does that
you
count?
And 9,000 other sports fans.
Right. I think every black person, if you could say a White Stripes song, you're like Seven Nation Army.
Every black person and 3/4 of the white people, okay? Or the white people How's that? And fell in love with a girl. Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm going to play devil's advocate. A huge band, the look, the whole, women,
I get it. Jack White is another one who's actually a very talented musician.
Right.
Not my cup of tea.
And Meg White is a very talented musician.
Absolutely. And it was very fierce. So she was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
And she was like, whatever this is, I'm over it.
Right. I'm going to go home. She's married to Patti Smith's son.
I always find it very fierce, the kids who can do that. Her, Bobby Gentry. Bobby Gentry was like, I'm done, and disappeared.
Right. I'm done. I'm going to move back to Detroit. My thing with White Stripes is that I hear their influences. I don't hear who they've influenced. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think who is the new White Stripes. They are, again, a singular. They don't do it for me. It's fine.
Yeah. But they do it for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I understand that it makes sense to me. It's not a weird one. Not my cup of tea, but they absolutely.
Not a weird one at all.
I get why they're there.
No, I get why. And it's their first year of eligibility. Not a weird one at all. It's not like are you kidding me?
Right.
Definitely worthy. They're not. One song. 1.5 song. I know that one song and then the other song. All right, Iron Maiden. Not my lane, but oh my God, they deserve to be in there.
I'm like, they're not in there.
I know. We should there could be there's a whole category of they're not in there. That would be me too.
That's every year there's usually that one where I'm like before it was Judas Priest. I was like, they're not in there.
They're not in there.
And I know. So Iron Maiden to me is like, oh, okay, well,
yeah,
they're gonna fill that. They're going to get in because. Clearly.
They're not in there. I mean, and like I've said before, my son saw them at Barclays the same week he saw Kendrick Lamar a couple of years ago. When asked who was better, he looked at me and goes, oh my God, Iron Maiden was like unbelievable. I mean, it's like you get a capital A heavy metal and they're pioneers and they're not in there. If I have to tell you how many times I have to go, no, they're not in there. No. It's kind of like the Basketball Hall of Fame. What do you mean? Think of somebody who should be in there and they're not in there. Or Charles Barkley. What do you mean he doesn't have a ring? Or you know what I mean? It's like you just assume. Yeah. So Iron Maiden. I mean, I can't name a song. I know what their logo looks like though. It's got that crazy kind of face to face. Yeah, the thing with the thing.
And it's like a thing.
Right. We're voting for the merch this year. All right, Soundgarden. They're not in there?
I mean, yeah. People do love Chris Cornell and Soundgarden. They're another one, I felt like they were huge for one album, but they are enduring to the people who love them, right? And I do think that they are referenced a lot. They are spoken about a lot. And I really liked Chris Cornell's solo.
Me too. The one with Timberland, that record he did with Timberland. Me too.
I love that solo work. I can't say that they don't deserve to be there because they really are still referenced. I hear them brought up a lot and people compare other groups to them and that period of time. But I wonder, is that because they were out during a period of time versus the work standing the test?
Well, they had some big radio hits. I mean, Fell on Black Days was like a big hit, and Black Hole Sun was a big hit.
Yeah, that was an
MTV kind of, and I think they were the first of the Seattle bands to really break through. I mean, I think that, and they were certainly much more Zeppelin influenced than, let's say, Nirvana, who, again, I am not this year. I can make a point for every single, except for one. I can make a point for every single group on here. There's not somebody where I'm like, are you kidding me with this? Right. So I am surprised they're not in. I think Chris Cornell, their hits were so long ago that you can kind of forget. You know what I mean? Like
because he's not here anymore.
He's been,
he's the enigmatic, front man, and he's not here. So
there's nothing more enigmatic than dead.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's the ultimate in unknown. But but nobody sounded like him. To me, so I can make a point.
But he was one. That's the thing, because there was mystery around them. Like we knew them, but we didn't really know. It's very interesting with them. I think that a lot of the voters will vote them.
Okay, and he looked like Miguel.
Do you think he looked like Miguel?
Kind of, sort of. I remember us asking Miguel once whether there was
he related to Chris Cornell?
But Miguel also looked like Kevin from Blackstreet Boys too. Okay. Yes, he did. Stop.
No, let me just say
yes, he did.
Okay, no, let me just say this. Now, you know that normally the guys that I date, usually a little tan. But back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I'd be doing certain shows,
he could get some.
And we'd be backstage and those Backstreet Boys would be back there and Kevin would be back there. I used to think I was like, he's First of all, he's tall.
Very tall. Taller than me. And I'm tall.
He's extremely nice.
All of them are nice.
And he's really good looking. I used to be like, you know.
He could get some. Ergo,
you play your cards right, honey. I might be the I want it that way, honey.
Right. We're gonna show how back your street is.
Okay. You know what I'm saying?
You named it that.
Back streets, back.
All right. No, but come on, Miguel, if you're listening, you know that everyone has a crush on you, had a crush on you. You are a daddy, for Christ's sakes. You haven't aged at all, you weasel. And you would look at him and go, okay, this is like a taller non-Cuban version of Miggs. And Chris Cornell. And Baby Elion. But that was a whole other...
It was giving Elion
Sorry.
He's gonna hate us, and he listens to the show, so he's gonna do it.
We love you, but you cannot deny your Kevin-ness.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. This is supposed to be a serious show, Courtney. This is where we break down serious.
Baby Elion when they're busting and getting him out their closet, and it kind of does look like Miguel is a young Miguel. Oh
but we love me. But okay, this is a joke. This is a joke for 50 people. But the 50 people here. I'm sorry. We're comparing our dear friend to 3 really good-looking people. Tell me how that's a wrong thing. Because have you seen what Elion looks like now?
I know, he's hot.
Oof.
Yeah,
Oof.
Yeah, he's giving moments.
He's giving full Castro
that
indoctrination.
Kevin still looks hot too. It's like, hey, Kevin.
Okay, if you had asked me on my bingo card whether I'd be talking about the hotness of Kevin from the Backstreet Boys, I brought it up. It's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the ultimate. I can't believe she's not in. Cyndi freaking Lauper.
Okay, let's talk about talk about Miss Lauper. She has literally been giving us things since she's been active since 1977. You know what I'm saying? Then we get She's So Unusual in 1983. And what I think people don't realize is Cyndi Lauper's had like 11 albums, including Memphis Blues, which was literally the #1 blues album of 2010. Like, she sold over 50 million albums. She's also in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. She's won
Tony.
She's won Grammys, Emmys, Tonys, New York Outer Critics Circle, MTV Awards, Billboard Awards, American Music Awards. She's got a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I think that people discount the amount of work that Cyndi Lauper has done because the biggest hits came at the first part of her career, right? That span in the 80s.
True Colors was on the second record.
Yes, but I said the first part of the 80s. And all of those
the first part of the 80s,
they were back to back. And the 90s, she was still on Epic, still making albums and making great albums.
Hatful of Stars is a great record.
That album is brilliant. I love beautiful. Hatful of Stars. Hatful of Stars is amazing. I mean, it's like, listen, A Night to Remember is great. Sisters of Avalon is a great album.
Yeah.
At Last is a great album. And then her dance album, Bring You to the Brink, is a great album. Then she had Memphis Blues and Detour. Her last original album was in 2016. She is a person that I think people have taken for granted because she has been around and they just want to kind of reduce her to True Colors, which is, a song that people are still covering and still singing, and
Girls Just Want to Have Fun became the anthem of the Women's March in 2016, and her advocacy for LGBTQ and trans people way before people were even acknowledging the issue. Cyndi was on the forefront of this.
She was talking about women's issues, and she's always championing gay rights issues, and she still does. Yep. And she puts her money where her mouth is. She does a lot of stuff with musicians, and she does. Listen, to me,
sounds amazing. Still,
yeah, she is an icon.
I think,
and I really wish people would dig back into the work, especially like Hat Full of Stars and Avalon, those later records, and just listen to her voice and the songwriting and just understand that she's so much more than She Bop and Money Changes Everything. You know what I mean? Those are great records, but she's got a whole catalog of really amazing
And
work.
one of the first artists, I mean, and you will know this better than me, but to my mind, one of the first artists to cover Prince.
Yeah, she did when
you were
mine. He gave her the permission to do it early on, and her version is amazing.
It's fantastic, right? It really is. It's a really So she's one of my. I can't believe she's not in. And I'm very glad she is in. All right, this is a really interesting selection. When the Small Faces and the Faces were up the same year, they did a split where they said the Small Faces and the Faces are essentially the same group with one rotation. You know, one has one guy in or one guy out. I forget.
Right.
All right. This year it's Joy Division and New Order as one nominee. What do you think about that? Because do you think there's enough of a difference between Joy Division and New Order to warrant this, or do you think there's a continuity that makes sense?
I think there's a continuity that makes sense. I do. I think there's a continuity that makes sense. You know, and it's like because they essentially are the same people with what? Like was it Joy Division had one person?
Ian Curtis killed himself,
right.
And then the band regrouped as New Order. I think added one person. I think the keyboard is Jillian, and I forget her last name, and I apologize for that. Yeah. But I think it's the same band with a new
that's
singer.
why I believe it's a continuity, right? Because it wasn't like there was we broke up and we have all these things. It's like you start this group, you're having some success. One person, unfortunately, is no longer there. You have to regroup. You're like, well, it doesn't work without this. So you just kind of morph it into this other thing. So I think the Joy Division is the nucleus and that New Order grew from that nucleus. So, and it's still attached, really. You know what I mean?
And I mean, it
doesn't feel almost like two separate groups.
Right.
So I
mean, New Order, it's like a continuation of a thought. Yes. New Order, when we saw Pet Shop Boys and New Order does two Joy Division songs, and they are their songs. It's not like they're covering them. They're their songs. And also, I mean, Joy Division was definitely sort of a different sound. I mean, obviously, Love Will Tear Us Apart Again was ubiquitous in the clubs. Ubiquitous. You couldn't, and Transmission. But you can almost see, as the progress of music went along, you could almost see Joy Division starting to do maybe some of the more freestyle and electronic stuff that New Order was doing.
Absolutely.
You know, you can maybe see it. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. I mean, after seeing that show, I had forgotten how many hits New Order had.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like...
And that they're actually a band. They're a band. You know what I mean? They're playing instruments and they're up there playing. I was like, right, you're a band.
You're a band. You're not a studio thing. You're not Arthur Baker with a bunch of
Right. And shout out to Arthur Baker, who's amazing.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That is not me. Yeah.
But it's like, and I always forget that it was like when we saw ESG, and I'm like, holy shit. I always thought ESG was a studio, like a producer studio thing. I had no idea. And it's like, oh my God, now your sisters, you're a band.
Right.
And I love that. You know?
Which is never to discount studio stuff and whatever.
Absolutely not.
But there is something to be said when you're hearing a sound that is, especially dance music, when you're hearing something that's big in the clubs, and then you go, oh, wow, you're playing this as opposed to programming this.
I am always impressed. I love, if you have a great song, it's a great song. But to me, there's a respect for that musicianship, because I know what that life is. It's really hard, and you're out there and you're doing it. And when you can make some shit sound really good and you have that skill, especially like you said, in those eras where a lot of things were very producer driven, like they're producers, and you hired these singers who went on later, a lot of them, to become very famous in their own right. But you hire these people like Change. I was watching this video the other day of Change singing, The Glow of Love. And it's not Luther doing the performances, because again, that was back in the day of studio musicians, a producer hiring these people,
swapping out,
and you have vocalists, and this guy is lip singing, and I'm hearing Luther's voice, and I'm watching it, I'm going, well, wait, what? And I'm realizing, oh my God, right. Change, who has several albums, was like producer driven. So that's why I get confused. And I'm always impressed when I see certain groups from certain eras. And I'm like, wow, you're actually a band. This wasn't some producer's idea. And then, you have the vocalists of the time coming in and turning these songs out and then moving on to the next project.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they deserve it. To me, it's a natural progression from Joy Division to New Order. So
and very much sense. A sound of a certain era. I mean, it's very much a moment in time, but a moment. Joy Division. I mean, look at the freaking kids walking around in those Joy Division T-shirts from Urban Outfitters. I mean, for good, their influence remains. I mean, they really do. It really does remain. All right, Sheryl Crow, another. I can't believe she's not in.
I love Sheryl Crow.
I know you love her more than I love her, but I can see why she.
Sheryl
yeah,
Crow.
Make the case.
She's another one. 11 albums. Let's see how many awards, because she's got a bunch of awards.
Very respected in the industry.
Very respected. Okay, she's won 9 Grammy Awards out of 32 nominations.
Wow.
And, she's had, listen, I appreciate Sheryl Crow because this is another person who plays instruments and she writes and she produces. And she had to go up against the men who once, remember Tuesday night, was it the Tuesday breakfast? What's I always get the
Tuesday afternoon breakfast club or singing? Look it up.
Tuesday Music Club, right? Tuesday Music Club was the name of
her first album, right?
Of the guys, and it was Tuesday Night Music Club. And remember, they were all just jamming. Their album came together. Then, of course, she had some of the men who were part of that trying to sue her, being like, "You didn't do this album and write," and blah 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 blah, which made her write her next record. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm for any person who has true talent. Listen, I love a no talent, high production value thing for a hot, fun minute of, it's a kiki pop show. But really what I appreciate are people who can have longevity, staying true to themselves in this industry, which is very, very, very hard to do as a woman. It just really is. I've seen it up close.
Especially a woman of a certain age. I am that age.
People start trying to make you do all kinds of things and say, well, maybe if you do this and do that. And she's never fallen down those tropes. I think her albums are great. She's had the hits. She's got the longevity. And I think there's some young singer-songwriter types and she's done a lot of work in the country space, and some of those young girls who she's influenced.
Oh, for sure.
So
for sure.
I think that she deserves it. Now, do I think she'll get in with the voters with this list? I do not. Because I think they're going to look at her not on this first round. When I'm looking at who's not in and thinking if they only do 5, I don't believe she will be one of the 5.
All right. That's it. Somebody made a point, and I never really thought about it, that in many ways she was penalized for being so pretty.
There's a little bit of that.
Which is a weird, that women viewed her as like, oh, guys like her because she's hot. She's also tiny. I was on a show once, and she's like literally came up to my ankle, which is, I'm tiny. I mean, I'm tall, but I have no problem with her. I don't think I'll be voting with her because for me, the list is so strong this year,
and that is why I'm telling you.
But I have no problem. I think a lot of people. Are you kidding?
No, I think a lot of people are going to feel that way, and she is deserving. But when you look at the list, you're going to be like, you could come up again next year or whatever. This list, especially when they have a woman problem, right? So when I look at some of the women who are in front of her. It's like, to me, Missy is like everybody was like, Jay and Eminem were a lock. Missy is a lock to me. So,
I think I think this might be Cindy's year.
You know what if you ask me, okay, do we finish the list?
No, I'll go through. Okay, all right. Spinners, which I'm loving.
I love that.
I'm loving. They were on the ballot once before.
I think it's a long shot.
I think it's a long shot because
I'm glad to see them there.
I am very glad, especially in light of Tom Bell passing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I am very glad to see Spinners brought up, but I will say I think it's a long shot because their influence in their hits were so long ago, and their influence is hard to pin down for people whose ears are not tuned in that. If you're someone who loved Boys to Men, then you can hear the influence. If you're somebody who goes, I hate that kind of music, I think that they are overlooked. There's a lot of genres that don't get a fair shake with people. I would love to see him get in. I think it's a long shot.
I think it's a long shot. Yeah, I think it's a long. This list is you can make a case for a lot of people, and I think they're a long shot. I think Cheryl's a long shot this year.
There's three more. All right, so in a 3-way tie, and this is possibly the strangest trio that you will ever come up with in music. Tribe Called Quest, second year on the ballot in Warren Zevon, who I can't believe is not already in.
That's crazy.
And George Michael. He almost made the ballot last year. He's in now. Now every single one of those people is deserving, and having them compete against each other is like having Usain Bolt compete against Allen Iverson, compete against Nadia Comaneci. I mean, they have nothing in common with each other than they all make music.
And do you want to know what's interesting? I think all three of them are a long shot. And you want to know why? Because if they had a 3-way tie, right, from the list, that means they didn't get high enough even in the room. And you are the guys who really will champion some people for real. Like, yo. Yeah. So I think when it goes out, this list is so strong. People are going to look and say, like, Iron fucking Maiden isn't in there, because that was just my thought. Right. So I think they're going to get in. I absolutely believe, because of how people feel about Soundgarden, that this might be their year. This clearly needs to be Missy's year. And
How about Willie? I
think it's going to be. I actually think it's going to be Willie, Missy, Iron Maiden. Who else? Soundgarden, and there was one more. I thought
Kate Bush.
Kate Bush. That was it. And Kate Bush.
If
there's 5, I think that those are the 5.
If there's 6, who do you think?
If there's 6, Cheryl might slip in there. Maybe.
I think Cindy is going to take Cheryl's slot.
Oh, wait. I keep forgetting about Cindy. Yeah, here's the thing about Cindy. I think Cindy's very interesting. This is where, because you guys in the room have a really strong musical knowledge, but this is where, when those ballots go out to everybody else, are they able to look past the fact that, and not think of her as girls just want to have fun in True Colors?
Well, in defense, these ballots are not going to my mother. These ballots are going to music people.
That's true, but we say that, then Kate Bush would have been in years ago. You know what I'm saying? It goes out to people who might think, I love Cyndi Lauper, but somebody else is more deserving because I can't name any of the other hits and stuff from the other album. You know what I mean? And then they might look at somebody else and be like, oh, but I know these songs, I know this album. And I do think that's how people vote in there. Or we could be surprised, right? It can go out and people could look and say, Warren Zevon's not in?
Yeah, I think
he could be a dark horse.
But he's also a noise that's certain. I mean, I think Warren Zevon is absolutely brilliant. I think his songs, to me, he was the one part of the California sound that I could tolerate, because the rest of it was like, he's just a brilliant songwriter, great singer. His name always comes up on the list of like people like, I can't believe they're not in. His name always comes up. Tribe's name comes up a lot. And it's great that there are 2 rap acts on the ballot, and they are really beloved, especially if you grew up with college radio. If you're that age, if you're like in your 40s or early 50s, Tribe means a lot to you. I would love to see George Michael in. I think it would make a really great statement. It would certainly make for good TV. I mean, I would not be able to pick. I nominated George last year, went nowhere. I nominated Tribe this year. I wouldn't be able to pick between those 3, because it's like they have nothing. That is proof of the scope of musicianship right there. That is, and that is like, you know, a commercially successful but not massively successful hip hop group, Tribe. Warren Zevon, not really hugely commercially successful. And George Michael, obviously hugely commercially successful, but for 2 albums only. People forget the rest of his career. Well,
but if we're talking globally, 2 albums were, well, actually, let me see, because I think he has some other certifications in the
Listen Without
US.
Prejudice and Faith.
Well, Faith, right? But then there's also Older. I think Older was successful here.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like overseas where it sold a zillion copies, but I believe Older was absolute. Because Older is Jesus to a Child, and and Fast Love, I believe, is on Older.
Is that the one with the cop? Yeah.
Well, Outside was part of the greatest hits record. Okay.
Like I said.
Yeah, Older is Jesus to a Child, Fast Love, Older, Spinning the Wheel, Star People, You Have Been Loved. Right. Yeah, I want to say in the U.S., let's see, what did it do?
Well, I think there's also been more of an...
Yeah, it was a number 6. It peaked at number 6 in the top 10 here.
I do think that in our somewhat more enlightened and global times in terms of and
it went platinum here.
And appreciative of people, except if you're in Florida. Right. I do think that he has gone beyond the scandals and the this and the that. He's a great songwriter, great singer. His name always comes up on the why isn't he list. Listen, the men living in the basement, their mother's basement, clutching their pearls with like, why aren't Nickelback in? I was like, really? Do we really need to have this conversation? Why Nickelback isn't in? Because I could give you all day. But in their defense, they could sit there and rant and rave about Missy the same way I would be like eye rolling with them. So, it's going to be a hard list.
It is. Mm-hmm.
It's going to be real. I mean, it's hard a lot of time, but this, I have to say, I walked out of there with like, I couldn't really narrow it down. But I do think, here's my only concern though. Everyone's going to think Missy is a lock, and so they're not going to vote for her so they can vote for somebody else.
No, I think they're going to vote for her. I think people are going to be like, I'm voting for her. I do. It's like we thought the same thing about Eminem and Jay. I think it's going to be that same thing. That same feeling we had about that year when it was clearly Janet has to get in. It's like people voted for her. And I think people will absolutely vote for Missy because it is 100% deserved. I mean,
it makes a statement too.
I mean, and just like really the artistry is there. It's like, it just is. Those videos are groundbreaking.
Oh my God. I have a confession to make.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't vote for Janet because I just knew I just knew it in my heart. Wait a minute. I take that back. I did vote for Janet.
I'm like, yes, you did. Do you see the look I'm giving you right now? Like, excuse me? Did you lie to me and tell me you did? And now you're making a confession of being like you did it?
I was like, okay, there was somebody where I just said this is a done deal, but I couldn't, not because of any nefarious
No, it wasn't
stuff.
her. I remember us having a conversation, but it wasn't Janet.
All right.
It wasn't Janet.
No.
Was it Eminem?
I know. Eminem I didn't vote for.
Because I knew, because you were like, we knew he was going to get it.
No, it was Jay. It was Jay.
Oh, it was Jay.
It was Jay. Mm-hmm. I would never not vote for a woman.
Right.
Assuming it's a done deal. Sorry, patriarchy.
That's
I would
true.
never.
No, that's the real deal, T. That's the real.
It's still a woman. It's still a black woman. You never know. But Jay, I was like, he's going to get in. He's going to get in. He's the only rapper, the men in the basement, living in their parents' basement, screaming at their mother because they don't have cable anymore. I think I value your opinion on this, and I think you are spot on with this. I think this is everybody here can make a case for him. Even the ones we're not crazy about, you could make a case for them. I mean, It's not like you're like Nickelback.
No, there's a case for everybody on this list. Right. So now it's like, let the games begin. Because really, it could go, I wouldn't be mad if any of them made it to the final, right? Like, how do you say one is more deserving than the other? Everybody on this list pretty much has really accomplished
in my heart of hearts. So I just want to see Kate Bush get in, for crying out loud. I want to
see Kate Bush to get in because I absolutely think she would show up.
Oh, she would.
This
whole mythology that she doesn't come on planes or she's like a magical fairy who can't put her feet on the ground. Not only do I think she showed up, she has shown herself to be super appreciative of everything that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't been like, yeah, it's about time you motherfuckers got
And I think because she's not done a ton of things in America. Like
she's only done one thing, Saturday Night Live. That's it.
And one of the few interviews you can find of her is with Sue Simmons on Live at 5 when Sue Simmons was interviewing her and had no idea who she was.
Our favorite alcoholic lesbian newscaster. Allegedly. Which part allegedly? We're not sure.
But it's alleged.
I love Sue Simmons.
Sue Simmons is an icon for New York.
No, I love Sue Simmons. My dad used to go, "That's a good-looking woman, that Sue Simmons." No, I love Sue Simmons.
My mother
Chuck Scarborough and Sue Simmons.
Chuck and Sue, honey.
Chuck and Sue.
Remember the famous photo on the side of the bus where she's on the profile kissing his cheek and he's looking straight ahead. It was Chuck and Sue.
Chuck and Sue. You don't get newscasters like that anymore. I used to love them. And what's his face? What was that guy's name? Jim Jensen, who was literally smoking cigarettes on air. Jim
Jensen, Ernie Anastas.
Jack somebody or other. They would smoke cigarettes. They would literally be sitting there smoking cigarettes. I miss that. Not that you should smoke cigarettes. It's really bad for you. All right. We will probably continue this next week, but Courtney and I have a question for the young people of America and music critics. What are you hearing in Ice Spice that nobody else can hear? And on that, yes, because this is a continuation. Only thing I wanted to say is the first time somebody said Ice Spice to me, I was like, no, I would like a caramel macchiato medium. I thought they were asking me if I wanted what your drink
water or coffee. And then when I saw Ice Spice, I was like, thank you guys for listening to I'ma Let You Finish because, listen, that's all I got to say.
That's all I got to say. Every once in a while, though, we do have those moments where we go, it's just a noise that dogs our age can't hear.
Yeah, and it's okay. I feel like it's fine. The way our parents were like, what the hell is that you're listening to?
Turn
like,
that hippity-hoppity and that rock and roll down. My dad once said, I'm blasted. He goes, who is that woman screaming up there? And I'm like, it's Aretha Franklin. He goes, I don't care. Turn it down. Ice Spice.
Yeah. So it's like, listen.
Yeah.
For you young people, I'm sure you love it. I like it. Go for it. Have a good time.
Have a good time.
I'm just like, there's a lot of wooden nickels clanking around.
I have no idea.
Lots of wooden motherfuckers.
Thank you, Jody Rosen. Thank you. Jody Rosen is a prophet. He's been posting like, somebody needs to explain this to me. And I'm like, I love you, Jody. I love you. I'm saying it again. Okay, take us out, baby.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
All right, if you're gonna do a country accent, do another country. No.
Hello, and thank you.
All right, I'm gonna say this to Candace. Hi, Candace. It's me, your best friend / wife, for your benefit because I know shit is really messed up right now, and you're having a rough time. Courtney is snorting and chortling just for you.
Miss Thing, and my heat's on full blast. I feel like I'm going through the pause. I'm in here sweating.
It was like that this morning in my yoga studio. I'm like, this room is the size of my closet, and people are already sweating, and there's a lot of bodies in here. I'm literally going like there's sweat dripping from my eyebrows.
I literally have under tit sweat, and I'm an A cup. I'm an A cup.
And I have to go on with my whole day.
But it's a couture A cup, everybody.
Oh, okay.
It's couture.
Oh, I remember those days. Not the couture, the A cup. That's a whole other conversation. Right. Listen, you are doing God's work with your laughing right now for Candace and Katie. Candace and Katie, hi. Courtney is. I am in Courtney's apartment, poking him to make him do that.
Y'all, stop making me laugh too early. Okay, so you know what it is.
Here, I'll just close my eyes and pretend I'm not here. I'm pulling my hood up so you can't see me.
Thank you for listening to us on the Pantheon Podcast Network, where there are a gazillion music shows and us. You can find us on the Pantheon Podcast YouTube page. Please subscribe there, and I'ma Let You Finish episodes appear there every week. We're on the Pantheon Podcast main feed. We're on, thank you for listening on Apple, on Spotify, on Deezer, on iHeart, on Google, on Amazon.
We're on everything but drugs.
We're on everything but drugs, and we're accepting any that you would like to send via.
Not me. Courtney. I'm holding out for. I'm big on into the candy.
Right.
Thank you, Danny Myers. By the way, thank you, our pal Danny Myers.
What up, Danny? And
Kristen. What up, Kristen?
Yeah. and Peter and all of the
And
cats
Peter,
over,
thank
and
you,
everybody
everybody.
over at Pantheon and our Pantheon family. Check out some of the other shows there.
Please do. Please
You know
do.
what I mean? It's really, really great. And you know what to do. Leave a message on our message board on Facebook at ImmaLetYouFinish. Leave a comment on our Twitter at FinishIma, because we're still there. We try to act like we're not, but we're kind of there. But we're monitoring the situation. And tell a friend. Don't tell a friend. Tell every friend. Tell Mariah Carey. Tell Mylene Farmer. Tell Madonna. Tell Madonna that her tickets for $5,000 were ridiculous. But yeah, we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Grammys.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's FantasyPoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. FantasyPoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.